Welcome back to This Week in Indies. It's the middle of November already. Time waits for none of us. So that means we're up against it. Whether that's halfway through NaNoWriMo, or trying to get that year-end deadline in, or just trying to finish something. No time to be middling in the middle. So let's take a look at all the twists and turns that is traditionally called that second act. And we'll do so with our awesome roundtable discussion panel. Then C.L. Cannon will be along with indie books that are familiar to that of Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. And in the last 5 minutes, I spend quizzing our wonderful panel with the 5-minute drill. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, relax. Let's talk about how we get through the middle together here on This Week in Indies with your host, Joe Compton. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Welcome to This Week in Indies. Yes, it is I, Joe Compton, hosting this wonderful group here. Look at this fucking dais. All right, this is awesome. We've got a bunch of middlers here. So you're in the right place if you're looking for some help to get through the middle. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us. Let's run around the room and say hello. Bob, start us off.
Hey, I'm Bob Magoo of Tales by Bob. I write a series of books about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction.
Nice. Jim?
Well, I guess for purposes of this week, I write a bunch of science fiction, urban fantasy, a bit of horror, a bit of this, that, and the other, as well as nonfiction, and a bunch of other stuff. Continual, where we've got our own little network. Just all sorts of troublemaking stuff that applies to this.
Right. Mr. Hillman.
SM Hillman. Just call me Sean. The wickedboys.com, you can find links to my stuff. I'm a speculative fiction writer, game designer, adventure writer, and just a regular adventure person.
Hey everyone, Karina Gantis here. I am the author of 14 fiction books in all different genres. I also run Author Assist, and I'm the host and TV host of the podcast and TV show Behind the Pen.
Awesome.
Hey guys, Courtney here, CL Cannon. I do a lot of things here on Going Day Now. I own Fiction Atlas Press, and sometimes I get to write fantasy and science fiction.
Yeah, we'll talk about the writing aspect. I just got to say real quickly, since she's here in front of me, that your marketing tip this month, Courtney, was fucking phenomenal. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. I know that you were really proud of it. And if you guys haven't seen it, we did the late night news on Friday night, and Courtney talked about direct sales, and she gave a lot of great websites and a lot of great places to go if you're looking into becoming a direct sales person and selling directly from wherever you want to sell from. Courtney had some really, really great sites and great advice for that. So everybody go check that out. It is timestamped, so you can go right to it. I mean, if you wanted to watch me talk about the news, I would say stay for the whole show, but it's right in the middle of the show, which is ironic because that's what we're talking about today. It's kind of how I segue very gracefully into what we're talking about today, which is the middle, the second act of our amazing triumphs and tribulations of writing. I wanted to start the conversation by talking about, when is it that you really feel the second act? Is there a point when you're running into the middle? Is there an idea that you have where the middle comes? Is it something that just happens, or do you not realize it's the middle until you get past it and go back? When is it feasible for you to understand that it's the middle of what you're doing?
I was going to say for me, it's when I start to hate it. That's when I know I'm in the middle. I every book I write, at some point I start hating it, and that's I can tell how good the book is by how much I hate it. And if I get to X amount of hate, I'm like, I probably need to rethink this. But if it's just a normal amount of hate, then I know I've just hit the middle of the book, and it's just business as usual.
You have a Venom scale.
I am totally the opposite, Bob. Oh my God, this is where the juice comes in. This is where the shit hits the fan. This is where everything is thrown at the reader. This is my favorite part of the book to write. It doesn't matter what genre I write in. This is where the conflicts really hit. This is where the twists come in. This is where it really gets juicy. And I know when I'm in the middle.
I gotta say, I've read pretty much all of you. Karina kicks all of your asses as far as it goes with the middle stuff. She's very good at the second act, so I can see why she really enjoys it. There's a lot of shit that happens in her books in the middle.
Well, it kind of depends. So if I am, because I'm a planter, right? There are things that I absolutely plot out, nth degree, know what's going to happen when and where, and I map it, and you do all the nice little hurdles and things like that. And knowing it and planning it up front for okay, great, I'm going to put the bomb in the middle of the table here and sit and laugh and cackle. Makes you feel really nice about the middle of it because you've got an idea what the hell's going on. If I am in I just want to see what the hell's going to happen, and because I do sometimes will do quote unquote discovery writing. Usually that's when I'm trying to figure out a series or a character or something like that. I'll write a novella-length story just to see, is it going to hold together? And when I hit the middle is usually okay, I've gotten bored setting this up. Let me go blow some shit up. And usually what I know, the hardest part there about the middle is that thing of, do I really know where I'm going with the story? And am I being like Bugs Bunny running around going left at Albuquerque when I'm trying to get to Toronto or something? I don't know. But yeah, it's one of those things of, am I planning it and I know where the hell I'm headed, or am I just going, what the hell? Let's see what
happens. I guess for me, it's just like switching gears. For those of you, and this is not a shot at those of you who can't drive a manual transmission. I'm not saying that. But if you're listening to your automatic, it shifts gears at some point. So it's like shifting into third or fourth gear. You're starting to build more momentum, and I think that's for me is when you really start to build. I could tell the momentum and the tension is building. A lot of the first act is introducing conflict and introducing characters to a degree. But once you really focus on the tension of the second act, or of the whole work, I think that's when the second act kicks in. That's when the middle is there.
For me, I never write anything in a linear way. So a lot of times I'll write the beginning and I'll write the end. And so then I have to go back to the middle and be like, okay, how did we get here? What raised the stakes to make this happen? So for me, the middle is just fixing everything, kind of trying to take this part and this part and make them work together. So it can be exciting, but it can also just be really, really crappy because you're just kind of, I am a discovery writer as well. So I am trying to figure out how to make this work. And sometimes you get yourself into a pickle and you have to rewrite parts of the beginning or the end until you've got something that's cohesive. So it can be either really exciting or it can be a lot more work for me.
And so, go ahead.
I was just going to say, though, I feel like the thing that's missed a lot of times is that the middle, if we're looking at the middle of a story itself, not like take, say, a trilogy in the middle book. We're not talking about the middle book here. We're talking about the middle of a given story. It is the most important part of the book. If you think of a book as a meal or story as a meal, you have an appetizer, because I love appetizers, and you have dessert. But the thing in the middle, the main meal, is what you're there for.
It's the meat of the story.
Yes, exactly. It's the most important part. It's the meal. It's what you're there for.
The philosophy I have is from Better Off Dead, and that is, when you go down a hill, you see a tree, turn. That's how you navigate a hill. And going through them, and speaking of going into the middle, right in the middle of our conversation, I'm going to bring up the comments. How you all like that? I'm just amusing myself with being clever this morning,
I
everybody.
don't know who Maddie's looking at this morning with this particular crowd. I mean, between me and Bob alone, I mean,
and then Ron wants to start his own AMA here this morning. Good morning, Ron. As Sean pointed out, yeah, I mean, that would be a hell of a show, wouldn't it? It'd be about 3 minutes long. Hi, Anita. Nice to see you. Bob is breaking the fourth wall. Time will tell. Yes, time will tell. And Vanessa says hello. And she says, great to see some of her favorite people on the same show. And she's with Bob, same, the way that she tackles the middle. So, yeah.
I'm waiting for Ron to do a show called Plantsers. And you don't know episode to episode, is he talking about plants or about planting a book? So that's keep
that's
guessing.
the mystery.
Ron.
All right, so I mean, as far as like the middle goes, what is the most important thing to you in terms of what you're striving for the middle? Is it a twist and turn? Is it to get to the third act? What is it that about the middle that you really, really need to have when you get there?
I want to have a tough decision my MC has to make. I want there to be such a conflict that it's going to shock the readers, but it's also going to put the MC in a really tough decision. The reader doesn't know which way they're going to go. And it might be out of character to what the reader thinks the character would do, which makes it a bit of a plot twist. But yeah, for the middle, it really has to show the personality, the power this main character has in the story.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's got to be whatever you set up in the first arc. How are you going to challenge that? What are you throwing at somebody? What's the, it's the meat of what am I doing to torture my character? It's that we've had this set up, we've had something happen. You think you know this person, and whether it's a series or the first time you've ever met them or whatever else, you think you've got some idea who this person is. And then all of a sudden, what am I going to do to test however I've set them up as a character? Who do I kill?
Jim, you have a pen in your hand. Are you taking notes?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's an entire second conversation going on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm getting messaged.
Oh, no worries. I was like, I was gonna be impressed. I was like, wow, Jim's taking notes.
Now,
so I'll say for me, so this is why I don't get invited to talk on craft panels very often. It's because I very, very rarely think about things from a craft perspective. I have a background in anthropology, and part of what we, you get a bunch of anthropologists in a room, and they just get drunk. But outside of that, they typically, talk about things about just how so many things are universal, and we all tell stories the same way. That stories follow the same patterns. And so I just have always kind of trusted in that if I don't think about it and I just tell the story, it's going to hit the notes it needs to. And I realize that's a terrible way to do it, but it's what works for me. What works for me. So for me, the middles are typically, because I'm mostly a pantser, I typically have an end and a beginning, and the middle is what I don't have, but that's where I discover, and I just don't think about it too much, and I just let it go.
You can start singing then, Bob.
I think every time I think about like an anthropology conference, I just think that they get drunk in a bar and start singing the body song. The next phone's connected to the
the number of times I went to class and at my university, the anthropology department was on the back of the campus, and we just had a couch outside, just sitting outside. And the number of times I went to class and there was just someone still passed out in a chair and on the couch was a shocking number of times.
Well, when that university is out in the middle of the countryside, and you know it's more you have to ride a cow to class.
Since I interrupted the flow here, everybody say hi to Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
All right. So I don't know who didn't answer the question. So whoever wants to go, I don't care. Go ahead.
I'll go. I'm a lot like Bob and Jim. Like I go back to the middle to figure out what I'm doing with the beginning and the end. And a lot of the things I write are very character driven. So I'm kind of discovering with the characters all the stuff that's going on. And usually I am torturing them in some way. Like Jim said, I'm like, how can I make their lives harder and make us connect? Because when someone goes through something, you feel like you're more connected to them. That's part of being able to get your characters to be more human, more believable. And the more people relate to your characters, the more they're going to love them and understand them. So usually in the middle is where you really get to know the characters and know what makes them tick and why they make the decisions that they make, that will help them go on, move through the story and get to the resolution. So usually around this time, it's hard decisions and things are not going the way that they want them to, and how they handle that is like a big part of their character development. And I enjoy writing that stuff and torturing them, I guess, because I really love angst. But it can be, that part is fun. The not knowing what you're doing, that's not as fun, but it's still, as long as you get to your end goal, it's all good.
So,
go
go ahead,
Sean.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say, first off, I think there needs to be a serious discussion about sadomasochism and refer to authors the way we like to torture our characters.
Does that really need to be a serious discussion, though?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. So for me, obviously, I like to torture my characters, but I feel like for me, the middle of the book is where the real conflict comes in. The beginning of the story kind of gives you maybe even a false sense of the conflict. Or it gives you a framing device for the conflict, but the real meat of the conflict comes in the middle. The real thing that's challenging the main character or characters, the real villain of the piece. It may be someone you've introduced already in some other context or in that context, but even if you introduce them immediately as the villain, the middle is where you reinforce their villainy. It's, I guess there's a lot of momentum in a larger scale for me as well. There has to be a lot of movement, at least in terms of what the characters are doing, if not necessarily road trips all the time. That would get boring, but so there has to be a lot of momentum in there as well, that puts them in the right place come Act 3.
I think with the end of Act 1, you're going not slow pace, but you're moving along, the story's going along. The reader thinks they know what's happening, and then come the middle, you throw a spanner in the works. And that's what the middle's all about. Like you said, you start off with conflicts on page 1, where you're doing my story anyway. But by the time you get to the middle, that's when the whopper comes in. And that's what you needed to really cement the whole of the story, the whole of the plot, is to do with that middle conflict.
Jim, you were going to say something, right? So I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, the one thing I was going to say is it also kind of depends on the length of the work, right? Because I kind of write everything. So if you're writing a full novel, if you're writing a series, a trilogy, an arc, then you've got to look at how you're building it, right? If I'm coming in, I'm saying I've got, let's say, a trilogy, that middle book is also going to act as a middle act a lot of the time, depending on how I'm structuring the trilogy. Versus if I'm doing a novella, then I'm probably going to be diving into that middle act a lot faster. And if I'm writing a short story, that middle act is going to be the vast majority of it, that and the conclusion. So it's kind of a, what's the piece? What am I working on as to how you kind of define the middle, right? That second act is kind of dependent on how long the work is and what it is you're getting into. And that's one of those things that was a challenge for me at sometimes, was the whole thing of, I've done a short story and now I'm going to go do a full, oh hell yeah, that middle piece is going to be a lot longer than, or I've just done a novel and I'm trying to crank out a 10,000 word short story. And it's the whole, oh yeah, I did 10,000 words and I haven't done anything yet, right? Comparatively for a short story. So I think there's a little bit of that knowledge as to, hey guys, I think there's a little bit of that whole thing of how long a work am I at as to what defines that middle piece.
Hello, Jessica. Just want to say hello to Jessica.
That's what I said. Hey, cuz.
Yeah. And to let me just address this real quick with Vanessa. I heard that YouTube is changing their programming language. Is that the correct term? Programmers here, so they're doing something with their coding that is causing this issue. This is something that's been addressed. I've seen it addressed on like YouTubers I follow and stuff like that and things like that. So it's a YouTube thing, not a you thing. So I mean, it's not a you thing. You probably knew it was a YouTube thing, but yeah, YouTube is fucking with it right now. So I think they're gonna. I think they've realized that they've messed something up and they're trying to fix it, and they're just making it worse. So, which is typical, but all right. So it sounds like to me that really, I just heard about it just like a couple days ago. So wow, I don't know what's going on for anyway. So it sounds like to me that this is a common thing for me as well, and the idea is, I'm just curious, putting a lot of the meat into the middle, right? Do you find that you are more pressing the middle for the details, or are you putting the middle, making the middle the more solid piece, and then going back to the first and third act and kind of filtering the details that you've created from the middle? Does that make sense? You understand what I'm asking?
If I look at it like cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I look at it like cooking, I've created my base. Let's say, if you're coming in and you're doing some sort of a nice soup, let's just say, because that'll be easy. But you've created your base, right? You've come in, you've thrown a little bit of the base seasoning and herbs and stuff in that just needs to cook down. Then when you're looking at getting to the middle of creating the soup, that's when you're adding stuff as in the stages that things need to cook, right? You're going potatoes first or things like that that need to cook longer. But you're periodically coming back and seasoning and adding some that'll just sort of diffuse through it. And that's kind of that middle part, is you're adding all the meat, the potatoes, all the stuff that's got to sit and cook and stew over time. But you're also still putting in a lot of the vegetables and things like that distill down for flavor. They break down. You don't necessarily see them when you get to the end product, but if it's not there, you can definitely tell it's not there. And then it's when you get to that third act is when you throw in all the finishing seasonings and the final kicker and the spice and everything else. But it's that cooking process. That middle part is all about adding in the stuff that really needs to come in, whether you've had to braise stuff on the side before you throw it in and things like this. Now that I'm rambling with a really bad analogy this morning from a lack of caffeine, but that's kind of the way I approach it, is the same way I would do cooking, is that's where you throw in the major stuff, but you're timing it so that you know that it'll have enough time to cook as it goes along the process.
So I thought it was an excellent analogy.
So
I'm Southern, of course there'll be butter.
Oh yeah. So like I said, I don't really sit down and think this is my middle, and think about it in terms like that. I just kind of write the story. But what I do, where what the middle ends up being for me is because my primary work is a long series of novellas, and the middle is where I sit. What I do is sit down and think, hey, there are unresolved plot points from other books. Is there a way that I can either further that here in this middle or resolve it here in this middle, and kind of move the overarching story along as well. And so that's really the only thing that I do, like kind of meta thinking about the middle. Otherwise, I just write and just see what happens. And kind of more precisely to answer your question is because I have no idea what the middle is until I write it. The beginning and the end filter into the middle, not the middle filters out to the beginning and end for me.
That's a good point you make, Bob, actually, about the middle. If you're doing a sequel of books, say you're doing a sequel to the one you're writing now, the middle is where you start thinking about how you're going to carry it on. Of course, it all comes out at the end of the conclusion of how you're carrying it on, but it's where you start plotting it and start throwing little hints and little clues in of what's going to come. Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point. If you're talking about a series, then the middle of the book, the previous book, book one, whatever it is, I don't necessarily like as a reader, oh no, this thing came up in the third act and now it's going to carry over. I kind of like it coming up in the middle act, be unresolved, right? It's this, it's a subplot. And then the subplot is what carries over from middle act to middle act. So speaking when we're talking about writing a series of stories, whether they be books or novellas or shorts, I don't know that I write the way that they're describing it, as far as the details filtering in from the two ends or filtering out to the two ends. I guess for me it works both ways. Each, I'll write the first act and I'll get the second act. I realize, oh no, I got to go back and change things. And then I'll get to the third act and I'll be like, oh, I got to go back and change things. So the process isn't quite as one way. So it's constantly back and forth, back and forth.
I'm the same way as Sean, is constantly back and forth depending on what I'm doing on each part of the story. There's things that I think of and I'm like, oh, I need to lead into this here, or I need to have more of it going on later in the story. So it's just kind of, it is not well-cooked soup. It is just me throwing things everywhere and just seeing what sticks.
Now, let's be clear. When I cook, I do the same thing. There's going to be seasoning all over the top of the counter. There's a cutting board over here on the side that, has to get cleaned up at some point. I got knives over here. There's probably a fingertip rolling around. So,
And so we've reached the middle of our show, which means that
Another segue.
Hey, look, I'm on fire today. I might as well just ride the wave. So that just means it's the Indie Connection. Did I say her name right, Courtney, in the intro?
I think so. I have always said it as Mass, and then somebody was like, no, it's Moss. And I've read one of her books. It was not this, it was a Court of Thorns and Roses, and it's not really my style. It's more spicy stuff, and I'm more into the fantasy stuff. But people really like this book series, and they think it's one of her less spicy ones. So I might read it eventually. I got that one from the library. But there's lots of people. She has a legion of fans, so there's lots of people who will like these books.
Yeah, she's a TikTok like superstar. So anyway, here is Sarah J. Maas or Sarah J. Moss and the Indie Connection.
Hey guys, C.L. Cannon here from Fiction Atlas Press, bringing you another Indie Connection. Today I'd like to tell you about some indie books that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series. The first book I have for you is called Rune of Secrets by Kelly N. Jane. She craves vengeance. He requires justice. Fate demands both.
Without enchanted powers and struck with a curse, Princess Rowena could not prevent her family's murder or save herself from the fallout. Vulnerable but determined, she dares to conquer her enemies and free her people. But secret deals force her into a betrothal, tempting her into a bold decision that could cost her life. Rowena has nothing left but to avenge her family before she dies, until the most terrifyingly yet hauntingly handsome Fae arrives, demanding she follows her destiny. Rowena has the power to lead her people or destroy them. The second book I have for you is called Flight of Sorcery and Shadow by Meg Cowley. Adon's captivity is over when darkness descends upon the realm. The elf's only choices become escape or death, a far cry from his past fame and notoriety as a legendary thief. Lost, alone, and desperate to escape the deadly beasts now stalking him, he does not count on meeting Leaf, a ranger of the woodland elves and Adon's natural worst enemy. Leaf prides herself on being one of Lune's finest rangers. Now she is the only one left alive. She must alert the queen at once that the realm's defenses have been breached by unimaginably malevolent sorcery. The last thing she needs is to stumble upon an escaped prisoner. Adon and Leaf become unlikely allies. Neither can survive without the other in a deadly race to outrun what hunts them. Leaf must learn to trust another again, and Adon must dust off his once legendary skills if they are going to escape. But what else will bloom in the darkness that neither of them can deny? An old enemy rises, stronger than before. He will consume all in his path until dominion over the world is his. Multiple fates are bound in this inexorable descent into darkness. The third book I have for you is called The Crowned Daughter by Dakota Brimage. All Ani ever wanted was to be normal, to stay out of sight, but now her world isn't what she thought it was. Magic, war, forbidden love. With her memories gone and her powers suppressed, she has to navigate this new magical world she's been thrown into. It's just one thing. She has to fight for her life and her kingdom. Princess Ani is at the forefront of a war to decide the fate of her kingdom, and caught in the middle of a devastating love triangle. Prince Kylan of Vozar, her enemy, or who should be her enemy. He looks at her with hunger in his eyes, as if he's ready to devour her. And Ezra, he's watched her all her life, loved her all his life, even when she didn't know he existed. Can Princess Ani avenge her parents and save her kingdom from falling into chaos and the flames? Will she be able to save herself and her heart from the cruel knife of betrayal? And the last book I have for you is called Kingdom of Blood and Salt by Alexis Calder. After spending years training to defend my people from our enemies, I never expected that my enemy would be the one keeping me alive. Athos is the last human city. A treaty with the Fae keeps the Fae, the vampires, and the wolf shifters at bay while we fight against the dragons at our border. Being a human in this world is dangerous, and we all make sacrifices to survive. When the delegation sent by the Fae King arrives to claim the human tributes required by our treaty, I never expected to forge a connection with their leader. Riven is as dangerous as he is handsome. I know he's my enemy, and I know I'm supposed to hate him, but with each passing day, he's more difficult to resist. But things are changing in Athos. Humans no longer want to bend to the Fae King. Alliances blur, and centuries of lies begin to unravel. And I'm faced with a choice. No matter how much I hate him, Riven might be the key to preventing war. But it may mean sacrificing everything. Okay, that's all for me this week. I'll see you next week on the Indie Connection. Bye!
Even though she's technically 3,000 miles away from me, but literally right next to me here in this show today, I say it each and every week, whether she's here or not. And that is, I'm very, very grateful to Miss Courtney Cannon and CL Cannon for doing this each and every week and allowing us to be the exclusive home of the Indie Connection debuts. And I'm really just so proud of this series and all the work she does. And it's a really fantastic thing. And I hope a lot of you out there appreciate it as well. And, I'm sorry if Courtney and I are adding too exorbitantly to your to be read list. Just deal with it. But yes, it was awesome. The chat went insane during that time. I guess everybody just had to get it out. But Madeline says it's the perfect way to describe how the middle comes together. I don't know which one that was. Probably the soup analogy. Spicy or whatever.
It was supposed to be spicy.
It's going to be spicy. Yeah, that's it.
You guys said it right. Okay, so it's Moss, I guess. She's one of my favorite authors. Are we saying this episode has hit? Oh, Jesus. Literally like Moss, LOL. And The Throne of Glass is actually one of my top favorite series. The way she ties the series up at the end is mind blowing. That's awesome. It is not as steamy as her. I don't know what the acronym is there, so whatever.
Thorns and Roses is what it is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
My lady wife is a huge fan of the TOG and less of Actar. I'm just going to call it Actar. Soup of Blood and Salt is Jim's new recipe. New recipe. That's his only recipe. Same here. Like I read them all, but preferred the TOG. I'd rather be a fire-breathing bitch queen over Lady of the Night Court.
But who wouldn't?
The soup of blood needs the soup of blood and salt needs spice. Yeah,
Paprika. It needs paprika. Oh, ghost pepper.
It goes from geez, dude. You're trying to kill people. Blood and ghost pepper. Nerd Sean Hillman thinks of Renegade Legion when he sees TOG acronym.
It's an old game system universe, and TOG is Terran Overlord governments. Whenever I see that, I'm like, what? Wait, no, I got to change. Got to change thought processes.
Yeah, I mean, the small bit of dyslexia in me sees GOT sometimes, and I think of the opposite thing that is probably very, very far from Sarah J. Moss, right? So
I just see TOS. So
all right, or TSF, shit hits fan. Anyway, so taking the soup analogy, because I think it is actually a very astute and excellent analogy, Jim. What happens when somebody tastes the soup and decides, you know what, this fucking thing can't be saved with salt? When you go back and you rework something when it doesn't work, when the middle ever tripped you up to where it doesn't work and you have to kind of rewire the entire thing? Does that happen to you? And how do you deal with that? Do you just chuck it, rewrite it, take pieces of it and try and piece it together? How do you manage that aspect of it?
It's go on.
Okay.
No, it's messed up my ending, to be polite. I won't swear. It's messed up my ending. And I won't rewrite the middle, because the middle, like I said, is where all the juices come in. It's my best part, my best writing. So I'll just rewrite the ending to match the middle. Yeah.
Wow, that's ambitious.
For me, the middle is when I realize how badly I screwed up. And that, like I said, I have an ending in mind, and I normally have a beginning in mind. And so when I start writing it, the middle, like I said, I have that hate meter. And if it breaches a certain threshold, I realize, okay, I'm hating this not just because I'm self-loathing. I'm hating this because there's something wrong. And normally what happens is I'll stop writing it for a couple of days and sit there and really think what is wrong here. And so in the past, like two kind of the very first Jubal County series book actually was planned to be novel length, and I got halfway through and realized this is absolutely not working, and split it into two novellas, and it worked. But I had to literally then go back and rewrite them. But actually, my most recent book that I finished, that's off in the chest currently, with it, I got to the middle and realized this wasn't working because of tense. I was writing it third person, and it really needed to be first person. But it wasn't until I got to the middle that it really sunk in for me. I'd explored it subconsciously trying to make it work, and then it just hit a critical mass where I was like, this is absolutely not working. And so then I had to rewrite it.
I think for me,
and
go ahead, Jim.
tossed entire books. Now when I say I toss them, I set them aside because there's usually a fair amount to the meat there that's still usable, and sometimes I'll grab entire scenes, entire chunks, things like that. But if it's the middle that's foobarred, I'll toss it and just rewrite because I can usually do that faster than looking to fix. If I get the idea of how to fix, if it's minor stuff, great. Just that standard editing process and kind of going through those mechanics. But I've got a number of things that are written, they're done, they're sitting there, they're stacked, and some of them I'll get back to try to fix. But a number of them, I've got them sitting there, and I've written what all the problems are. And they're on the list of, okay, well, if I get back to that series, I'll just go rewrite it. Because also if I set something like that aside, that's not under a contract and not under a deadline, I can just let it go percolate. And by the time I get back to it, I'll be a different writer, different style. And I'll have to go back and match the style of the series or match the style of the book. But I'll have also become, hopefully, a better writer, or at least suck less when I get back to it. So I've got a different way of fixing it. And I have discovered that sometimes if I take something and chunk it and rewrite it, it comes out with a better product because I will be looking at the same content. And if I'm cranking out content, I can take, it's usually my first draft for like 100,000 word book is only about 50, 60K. And I'm coming back in the edits to add in a lot of the bigger stuff. So if I see mechanically there's a problem, I'm not tossing that much out, or I'm not putting that much to the side. But sometimes it's just literally a matter of going through and saying, this subplot's not going to work. That's the problem. Rip all of that out and go back and structurally write. And that's probably the tech in me that treats things that way of write, build the structure, build the story, and then go add all the other fun stuff behind it. But if I've laid out a plot, I've laid out the structure, and I've done it end to end, and the middle's not working, then I've got to go back and restructure from the start to figure out where the problem is. And it's kind of sometimes the plan looks good and it doesn't survive contact with the characters and the voices in my head. Or the enemy, as we like to call them.
I feel like for me, where it falls down is if I'm bored with my own writing. And that for me is the big signal. It's not because I think there's a difference between slog and boredom, right? Something might be a bit sloggy, which is something you can fix. It's like, oh gosh, this will take forever, but you still want to tell the story. Boredom is like, oh my God, this is terrible. I wouldn't want to read it. I wouldn't read it. I'd put it down. There's something obviously wrong here. Either the characters aren't interesting, or their interactions aren't interesting, or the conflict's not interesting. Whatever it is that's got me completely bored with it. Like Jim, I'll set stuff like that aside. Although if I'm really bored with it, I'll really question whether I want to write this story or not. Whether it was an exciting idea, but it's not. For me, who I am as a writer, it's not going to translate well into the written word. So yeah, it's the boredom factor for me.
For me, like Karina, I have had situations where the middle just completely messed up my ending and I had to rewrite it. But usually in situations like that, the end product is better because of whatever happened in the middle that made me have to rewrite that ending. It made the ending more compelling. It made the ending make you connect with the characters in a more meaningful way. And it just made more sense. So it's not always a bad thing for the middle to throw you off and to make you kind of reassess where you're at with the story. I know one story in particular, it really messed me up, and I had to just completely scrap the entire ending that I had, not even just parts of it, just the whole thing. But it ended up being a really good twist ending that I could go into a sequel with, and it turned out really perfect. I'm really proud of it. So I guess it's not always a bad thing for your middle to throw you off.
So when you're under a deadline, right, and you're at a point where you're in the middle, and the deadline's coming up, does that factor into how you think about reworking something? Does the deadline matter to you in terms of how the middle goes? Do you kind of press through it a little bit faster? Because if you, like Jim said, if you don't have to worry about it, you can shelf it and take it on when you feel like taking it on, or take your time with kind of figuring out what doesn't work. But when it doesn't work and you're under a deadline, how do you approach that aspect of it? Do we all know what deadlines are? I know we're all indie authors, so
I've never heard of that.
What's a deadline?
So if I'm doing something that's under a contract or a deadline, and I've got two things that are late right now, so there's nothing like hearing the whiz of them go by your head. But usually if I'm doing something like that is under a contract, under a structure, all the rest of that, I've got a pretty solid structure behind it, and I can sit down and bang it out. Because I will sit down, and because usually if it is set under a contract, it's either underneath something that's already working in that space, or it's something that I've already pretty solidly have got down before I go pitch it out there. So usually if it's under contract, then I'm busting my ass to hit stuff under deadline. So yeah, it will. It depends on how big the check is and whether or not it makes more sense to fix. How big is the problem? Does it make more sense to fix the problem for the commercial product, or to hand it over to the publisher and let them come back and say, let's rewrite and fix it this way and deal with the editorial commentary that way?
No, I think so. I'm going to bring the dungeon analogy back. We game in dungeons because they're, we design in dungeons because they give us constraints, right? It doesn't work for everyone. I understand that everybody is different, but I feel like constraints or pressure, for me personally, speed up the problem solving process. So sometimes I let a deadline get close, bad habits, so that pressure will kick in. That like, okay, my whatever that thing is inside me that rises to the occasion. But I realize that's not good for everybody. But for me, that's how it works.
Sean, we are brothers from a different mother, my friend. That is exactly how I deal with deadlines. And I never accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. Well, very rarely, let's put it that way. I used to be much better at that when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I almost don't give a shit. So, so I'm really bad at it. So, but yeah. I always press myself up to the end and I hope that I can get through it.
It'll be fine. It'll all be fine.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, right? You realize that as you get older, that it'll all be fine. Plus, it's more of a product of me juggling so many things in the air at once than it is me not being lazy and not doing it. It's not procrastination. It's just I have other things going on, and something catches me. And I ride that wave a little bit, and that's just kind of how I deal with it. And then I realize, oh shit, I owed this to this publisher about 3 months ago. I better get on that.
Thank God I'm not on a deadline for In Times of Violence adult edition, because it's 10 years too late.
I mean,
I and my readers.
I mean, even self-imposed deadlines. Do you all put a little bit more pressure on yourself for self-imposed deadlines, or?
So most of my stuff is indie, so my deadlines typically are whatever I make them, and so most of my deadlines revolve around Dragon Con, because that's the biggest audience of the year potentially, and I always like to go into Dragon Con having something new to offer, and so my deadlines in that typically it's more publishing related type stuff than craft related type stuff. It's, oh my God, can I get this actually formatted properly and cover made, yada, yada, yada in time. But there is always an element of working with my editor And I've been lucky that at no point has she just been like, "Oh God, this is just trash. What do you do?" So whatever fixes I do need to make, I typically can get them done in time.
Set this one on fire, Bob. Set this one on fire.
Yeah,
Dance
it'll
around
happen.
it.
It'll happen. It'll happen eventually, but it hasn't happened yet. So, but that's the perk. Like, the book I just finished is meant to be the first in a trilogy, and I'm just not. I feel like there's something wrong with it, so I'm just sitting it to the side for a long time, and I don't have a deadline there, unless some publisher wants to come along and just put it out there. Then we can
Hint, hint.
amp the pressure up a little bit. If you've ever thought Alabama football should meet Eldritch Horror, I've got a book for you. So
I just assumed it had already.
I'm a Gamecock. We live in an Eldritch Horror during football season.
So, but yeah, so I'm probably not the best person just because being so indie. And early on when I wasn't indie, it was just a shit experience. So it didn't really matter.
I've got 2 books waiting for me, but I know if I started writing them now, I would wreck what I've already done. So I'm just leaving alone until I'm 100% ready.
I mean, for me, everything in my life is pretty much scheduled and batched. If it wasn't, if it's not on the schedule, it does not happen. I mean, that's pretty much where I'm down to. I can tell you what my schedule is pretty much every week. And the question is, like, I'm not at an event this weekend. I don't really, I keep saying I don't have more for the rest of the year, yet that's not true either. But if it's not scheduled and I do everything by batch, I know Monday nights and Tuesday nights are recording nights for continual stuff. I know, Wednesday nights this, Thursday nights this. Everything I do is batched and scheduled. So if it's not on the schedule, it's probably not going to happen. Hell, there's enough of the stuff that's on the schedule that it's like this has to get pushed over the side.
Wow,
yeah, but
Bob,
you're just stuck. You're just as screwed as I am. You're in tech too. So.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a like a paper platter in like forever.
Oh God, this is the only way I survive. You can't really see that but that is
Legal
one
path.
week to do.
This is what I was doing before the meeting.
Okay. All right. I stand corrected. All right.
What is this planning you people speak of?
Right. Exactly. Right. I'm curious from one of the busiest people that I know, Miss Courtney Cannon, how she deals with it.
I'm
Especially 'cause you have to
ADHD,
put out a
so
thought.
like I am. Once the pressure is on, I do my best work. So like when you asked me about the marketing tip this week, and I had forgotten about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do direct marketing," and so I wrote it all that night, and I got it done the next day. So, like I said, I do my best work just having a gun to my head, and that's how I live my life. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I have to have this done by tomorrow. Okay, let's do it." And then I schedule things, and I try to stay on a schedule, but I have so much. I homeschool my kids. I teach at co-op every week. I have all these builders that I do. I build websites for people. I've built almost 20 websites just this year, and I've got 5 more that I'm building. And it's a lot. So I just take everything as it comes to me and try to do my best. So I'm organized in everything else, but not so much.
I mean, I don't think anybody would blame you if you missed a deadline. They'd be like, that poor girl just needs some sleep. The both of you down there. I mean, the amount of times that I get random 3 a.m. DM messages from Karina and Courtney is endless. So it's funny. Yeah. I was gonna mention too. What was I gonna say? I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, definitely use a paper plate. Everybody's on the paper thing, so I don't know. That's what I was gonna say. If you saw my desk, you'd realize why I do not use paper at all, because I would never find it. So, organized chaos. Yep.
Yeah.
My child steals my paper books and my cat eats them and steals my pens. Nice. Karina is in the UK, so 3 a.m. messages are not. Well, I mean 3 a.m. for me, but yes, you're right. Yeah, that would be probably like noon for her. So yeah, but I get 3 a.m. messages from her at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So it does go both ways. I'm just more. Well, actually, I'm probably less awake at 6 o'clock in the afternoon than I am at 3 a.m. Let's be honest. But Vanessa had mentioned she misses so many deadlines too. Another person who I would not blame. I don't think anybody here. I would say if you told me you missed a deadline, I would not be surprised by that. I know all of the stuff that you all do all the time, so it's kind of crazy. But Chris gives me crap because I work the same way too with organized chaos. Yeah, Karina knows no real time zone. She is vanquished time. Yeah, Karina is the summoner of all of us. She can break the time barriers and cross planes, and she knows the future. So
Just can't get my ass over to multiverse yet. I've got to learn how to do that. Time travel. That's it.
Certainly something that has to happen. Absolutely. And another thing that has to happen right now is that I have to torture you all. I'm really, really sorry. I'm not.
Sorry.
Bring it on.
But yes, we are about
No fear.
Be wary of those words. We're about to take on the 5-minute drill, everybody. So put on your paper hats and let's rock and roll. All right. So let me fix this.
Oh, you're already cutting into our time.
Yeah, I'm already starting it. I'm not even going to reset it for you fools. I'm just kidding. I'm of course going to reset it. Calm down. All right. You all know how this works. Just going to go down the line the way I see it. Bob, Jim, Sean, Courtney, Karina, Courtney, Sean, Jim, Bob.
I'm the unloved little child. I get it.
You guys ready? Yeah. Sean's in the middle, everybody. So just to add one more pun to my
segue, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Everybody ready? Here we go. Bob, what is the most troubling trend in fiction right now?
AI.
Sean?
Yeah, AI.
All right. Karina, what is the worst Q&A question you've ever gotten on a panel at a con?
Pass.
Okay.
What do you do in your spare time besides do things with books? I don't know. I don't do anything. I watch Loki. That's it.
I think the worst question I've ever gotten was, oh gosh, after hearing me talk about writing, someone says, "Well, why do you bother writing?" And I think that's the worst question.
Jim?
Well, this is more of a statement than a question, but I'm going to pontificate for 15 minutes.
This is simultaneously the best and worst question I've ever been asked, and it was asked by the guy right there, Jim Nettles. It was, so Bob, what do you think the nature of reality is? At like 10:30 at night at Con Carolinas. It was beautiful and amazing. And
it was an amazing conversation. That made me late for my panel, by the way. You just went right into the segue of the next question, which is the best Q&A question you ever got. So, Jim, go ahead and answer because Bob just did.
Oh, well, my best one was probably about why the hell are you actually doing all this batshit insanity? And my answer was, I don't really have a choice because would you rather be crazy out there amongst people or just writers?
Nice. Sean?
It's always, who's your favorite writer? And then I'm happy to answer that. So that's always the best question.
Okay, awesome. Courtney?
If there was a book that you could read over again anytime, and I think I said 6 of Crows because I loved it so much.
Nice.
Why do you write? It's obvious to stop the voices.
Nice. Karina, now that the strike is over, What TV or movie franchise needs to get its ass in gear and get something out there?
Well, I don't watch TV. That's my answer.
What about movies? Any movie
I don't
franchise?
watch movies, no.
Okay. Courtney?
Books.
Shadow and Bone, and they need to have the Six of Crows spin-off because I've been waiting for almost a year now and I needed to have it. So
All right. Sean?
More Star Trek. So all that Star Trek needs to get going.
All right. Jim?
I'm going to say Good Omens 3. Let's get that third series done and out the way so I don't have to watch TV again.
Bob?
They're Canadian. I don't know if they're affected by the strike or not. I don't pay that much attention, but I'm going to say Letterkenny. So,
Well, they're on their final season right now.
it's their final.
Yes? Yeah, it just started. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's over after this. Although Shorzy's going to continue, so
Well, that's good.
and they'll all make appearances there probably. Okay, Bob, what character have you read or watched that made you want to drive them out into the middle of nowhere and be attacked by an armadillo?
Anybody from Requiem for a Dream.
Jim?
Attacked by an armadillo. I don't know because at this point I've gotten to the point now where if it's that inane, I just stop at about the first 35 seconds.
Okay. Sean?
Even though many people have or recently mourning the passing of one of the characters, the entire cast of Friends.
Okay. Courtney?
I guess Umbridge from Harry Potter.
I like that. That's a good answer. The main leads for that famous vampire trilogy that was out once upon a time.
All right. So, Karina, do you use Scrivener, Word, or Google Docs?
Word.
Courtney?
Word.
Sean?
Word and Google Docs.
Jim?
Yes, all of them, depending on what I'm
All right.
doing, and others.
Bob?
Google Docs for writing, Word to format it to upload to Amazon because I'm a peasant.
All right. Bob, rain or snow?
Rain.
Jim?
Rain.
Snow.
All
Rain.
Snow.
All right. Karina, would you rather be in the middle of a dark forest or a dark hallway in a house you've never been in before?
Dark Forest.
All right.
Dark Forest.
Dark Forest.
Jim?
I am in the middle of a dark forest. What are you talking about?
Bob?
Dark Forest.
All right. You guys didn't make it to the end, but I'm going to ask you the last two questions anyway. So, Bob, feel free to take your time now, guys. Bob,
Oh, we haven't.
The thing is how the announcer rambled half a time.
Yeah, I know. Gosh.
Look,
Whatever.
the moment I saw Jim on here, I knew we were not going to make it. It was gonna
all right, Bob, is Three's Company or is it a crowd?
it's company.
All right,
Company.
Jim?
Are people wearing clothes?
I can't answer that question for you.
Ask him the important question.
I
Context
just
is
want to sit
always.
in my, I just want to sit in my mountain by myself at this point.
All right.
3 seems like a lot of people, but there are plenty of twosomes I would hang out with.
Okay. Courtney?
It depends, really. It depends on the people, but I'll say 3 is fine.
All right.
Company.
The 3 of the 5 of you I've actually been to dinner with that have 40 people at the fucking table. So anyway, Karina, what are you in the middle of that you swear you'll finish before you die?
It's going to be In Times of Violence, Adult Edition. 80% the way through, first draft, 10 years going. The book's kicking my ass. Readers are gagging for it, and I'm not ready to open it up again yet. But before I die, it will be done. That is a promise.
All right. Courtney?
My TBR, even though it's a lie that I'll get done with it.
Wow. That's ambitious. Because, that's never going to happen. Sean?
Writing something that's been on the burner for 13 years. I think 13 years. It's called Griswold's Toys. It's kind of my trying to be a villain inspired story. So yes, that will be done before I die.
I was gonna say, are you writing for National Lampoon? Are you gonna do another? Are we gonna have a sequel to Vacation, the Griswold
No.
story?
Not that Griswold. No.
All right. Jim?
Before I die, I'm pretty sure that a number of series aren't going to be finished until somebody's like playing with a Ouija board with me. I don't know how fast you can write that way. Since I'm rambling and we have plenty of time. On an entirely separate note, I had somebody bring up this week that they viewed the entirety of all the writing process as channeling from another universe. What will I finish? Hopefully it's on the target for the first draft to be completed is Starving Artist Lie, because I've been working on that one for like 10 years. So the goal is to have that one out next year.
All right, Bob?
I've got 2 books written in a military fantasy trilogy, and absolutely zero idea for the 3rd book other than the name. But damn it, one day it's going to come to me, and I will finish that trilogy, and then I will see about getting it out there.
All right, and for you, Karina, you're getting a lot of love to come to Multiverse in the chat. So, and they're all Jim Nettles questions. That's why I do it, and that's why I love when Jim's on the panel, because then I know we're all in for a loop. And Nettles is
now.
But yes, weirdos are not using Scrivener. All right, and everybody agrees on the company aspect. Who are the 3? Well, it depends on, Anyway, let's run around the room and tell everybody where they can find you. So, Courtney, we'll start us off, please.
I am basically on all social medias except for Snapchat. You can find me at the thing that I can never point to over here somewhere. And CLCanon.net, I've got all my contests on there. If you go to fiction-atlas.com, I've got all my author stuff on there. And hopefully we'll have a new anthology coming out next January. So.
Nice. Karina?
You can find a clean young adult fantasy, and if you want something darker and more brutal, my dark romance, all on Amazon and other good bookshop stores. Get my words out there. Author Assist, of course, you've got my address down there, and just Google my name, Karina Gantus.
I'm curious what you think about them doing you don't watch TV, but they're going to do another season of Sons of Anarchy. I don't know if you've heard that or not.
I have, I do follow Kurt, Mr. Sutter. He's crazy. I love him to bits. Yes, I have heard. It's very exciting, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out a way to get the lead character back alive, I guess. And it's been a challenge because he got run over by a
He
semi.
just got squished by a semi. You can't bring someone back.
Sean?
You can find my links and stuff, except at thewickedvoice.com, except Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. So I do a lot of convention stuff. Recently did Multiverse. You'll see me there next year. Upcoming next April, you'll see me at JordanCon running the sci-fi track. And also I am the executive officer, co-mod, whatever you want to call it, of the Writing Tribe, soon to be the Writing Troop, I think, on Facebook. So if you're a writer, even ancillary to writing, go ahead and join up.
And you do something for this channel.
And I do something for this channel. Coming up very soon is episode 2 of Zero Means You're Dead, where we get some live footage, or not live, but we get footage from Multiverse. It's our Multiverse special, and after that we'll do Hit the Dice, where we play a game. Stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll get more of that in a little bit. Jim?
The easiest thing to do is go to jamespnettles.com to find out all the stuff I'm mixed up in the middle of. Come definitely check out some of the stuff we do at Continual. So if you enjoy the stuff from Go Indie, Joe and I like to play back and forth. We are going to be rolling out on some additional platforms. Right now it's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, but you can go to continualconvention.com. Coming into holiday season, we're going to be doing some live bar cons and stuff ourselves, or at least that's currently the plan. If you're interested in any of the workshops and stuff like that, I have been talked into restarting a bunch of the live stuff, which will be It'll be virtual, but it'll be live starting again probably in January. So if you're on my newsletter list, you'll find out about those first. But yeah, I'll be doing a bunch of the business and stuff like that workshop starting again in January, it looks like. And other than that, yeah, that's kind of it. Also, if you're on the newsletter list, you're going to be able to get promo codes for the new game stuff that is coming out. Hopefully, we're going to be launching the first product here in January, February timeframe. We're working on finishing that stuff out right now as well, and we'll be looking for writers for the new game product.
I've beta tested this thing. It's pretty cool, everybody. So it's a lot of fun. So, Bob?
Hey, I did it right this time.
Everybody who didn't see, he was practicing as everybody.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. So you can find me, tellsbybob.com. Like I said, I write the Jubal County Saga about a redneck wizard with a crippling meth addiction. I do a lot of conventions. Actually, next weekend, if you're in the Atlanta area, I'm doing Conjuration, doing like 12 panels there. So plenty of chances to see me. I'm also sharing a table with author Ben Meeks. We're going to sell you some books.
Tell Ben hi.
I will. And then probably more relevant to if you're watching this, I'm an author that's huge on transparency. Every month on my blog, I break down sales numbers, social media growth or shrinkage, things like that. How book launches go. I just provide a ton of data like that so you can see what it looks like to be an author of my very low level.
And I think it's safe to say, Sean, we can announce this right now, which is that this gentleman here is going to provide us with our next opportunity to play Hit the Dice.
Cool.
He's got a one-page game. So if anybody out there who's listening who wants to play Bob's one-pager RPG for Hit the Dice.
I'm in.
Yeah, me. You got to count me in.
We're going to be doing that on Monday. Did we say December 4th, Sean? Was that when we said it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes.
Monday, December 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So if you guys want to do that, just hit me up and I will get you on the list to be participating in Bob Magoo's one-page RPG. Do you know the game you want to play, Bob? Do you want to announce that or you want to keep it a secret?
Keep it a secret.
Okay, we're going to keep it a secret.
I'm in. I mean, I promise not to try to kill all of my fellow characters this time.
All right. So, congratulations, you guys have found Go Indie Now. If you were here for the first time, smash the like button, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that you do. We really appreciate you each and every week being here and enjoying everything that you're doing. Welcome to the family, and thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been a wonderful conversation, and next week we're going to finish the way that it should be finished, this little arc that we're doing, as Madilynn will be here next week to talk about the third act and the final act of your writing process as you get ready to get through Nano or get to your deadline, or just if you're just in a corner curled in a ball crying, don't worry about it. We're going to save you from all of that madness next week. So join us then. Join us throughout the week. We've got programming almost every day this week. A lot of great stuff. There's just so much. You guys can go check it out and find it. But that being said, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you guys again soon. Bye.